This talk is basically titled NodeBots, Building a Gaming Table Because Why Not? Hi. A little narcissism before I get to the table. Like you mentioned, I work at auth0. I'm a developer evangelist / event planner / wearer of many of the hats, as people often are when they work at smaller companies. I do a lot of content development, a lot of things. I'm a cat mom. These are my two wonderful, beautiful cats, Ace and Arya. Arya is sneaky. She lives up to her name. She's named after the Game of Thrones character. Ask me about it. She's living up to that name. I'm known for building a NodeBot or two. This is actually one of my favorite pictures ever taken. So that is people spelling out node in glow sticks, and that's me running in the background in a skirt covered in lights. And it's like those really long exposure photos. One of my favorite photos of my NodeBots ever taken. Anyway, and starting in late June, I'm an electrical engineering student, pending a couple calculus grades that I need to bring up. But today I'm here to talk about games. I associate with a group of interesting people back in Austin, where I live, and we play D&D. And we play lots of D&D. In fact, this looks an awful lot like one of our setups. But that's not my arm. I don't have quite that spectacular of arm hair. Also, we play board games. We play lots of different board games. We are enthusiasts, you could say. But in December 2015, we had kind of a holiday party for ourselves, and we decided we wanted a table dedicated to gaming, and we wanted dice towers and drawers and all the bells and whistles, but we wanted it to be customized. We wanted it to be ours, like our table. Many like it, but this one is ours. So we shopped around, and we found the main purveyor of these tables is called Board Game Chic or something like that. So this is the table we ended up thinking that we wanted. So that $3,500 is to hold a spot in line for a table. That doesn't pay for the table. The table itself is $12,000 to $16,000. There are also rumors and horror stories of people paying their $3,500 deposit and then not hearing anything for a year and a half. So put that in some perspective, I spent $12,000 on my car with $2,000 up front. So no, I don't. No, I'm not spending more on my car on a table. Plus, no robots. So I'm super confused at this point. So at this point, I realized, and we even kind of took an inventory at this party. Between the 6 of us, we have 2 sewers, a professional welder, 2 woodworkers, 4, nearly 5.5 web devs, a web designer, and quite a few hardware fanatics. So we figured, why not build it ourselves? We made the monumentous, intoxicating, and intoxicated decision to build our own, but with robots. So we came up with some basic features. We did not write this on a napkin because we're not entrepreneurs. We wrote it on an iPad Pro because we're programmers. We decided we wanted a strip of status LEDs for each seat. We wanted a cup holder. We wanted pull-out table extensions, much like the ones we saw on the website, and that we wanted a REST API. What? This is where most people ask me, why would you want a REST API on a table? Why bother with any of this? You certainly have the money to spend $14K on a table. You certainly don't need to spend all this time building it. Why? Why even bother? Which leads me into a side tangent on tropes, hobbies, and side projects. Raise your hand if you've ever felt burnout or a lack of purpose in your adult life, right? Just about every hand goes up. We all experience it sometimes. We hit that moment where we're like, why am I doing this for a living? Or why do I even bother doing anything? We hit that moment. There's a huge stigma around mental health and admitting that we've hit that spot. We need to get over it and realize that, yes, we do have burnout. We do have moments where we lack purpose. But what we need to realize, if we don't give ourselves time to find ourselves, it's not going to get any better. Your burnout's not going to get better if you just make it to that next shipping deadline. That's not going to work. You have to work at figuring out why you've burnt out and then work to solve it. And I found the best cure is learning something new that you are passionate about. Now, the trick is, my passion is kind of related to code and woodworking and sewing and crafting. And so my passions are essentially building and learning. Your passions might not have anything to do with coding. You might find out you're a kick-ass shuffleboard player. And that's your passion, and that's awesome. Like, go do it. We constantly tell kids to explore their hobbies and find themselves, right? Kids show an interest in art, so we buy them an art set, and then like 2 weeks later, they're interested in something else, so we give them a science kit or whatever. But we kind of forget to tell adults to keep doing that same thing. We forget to tell adults that it's okay to try something new, to go, figure out what works for them. And you're never too old to start a new passion. My partner is in his 30s. He did not get to go to college, but he's wanted a physics PhD for as long as he can remember. I finally convinced him that he needs to quit his sysadmin job, which that's kind of how he got caught in that same loop we all get caught in. It's a very comfortable job for someone who didn't get to go to college. You make a comfortable living and you just get stuck. I've finally convinced him to just get out of that cycle, start studying, and he's going to be starting his college degree in a couple years after community college. So you're never too old to start a new passion. Robots didn't hit me till I was 20-something. Math, hard. 25. 25 was when I started doing NodeBots. You're never too old. Just find something you like and do it. And if it doesn't have anything to do with code, that's fine. So the one thing you should take away from this talk, besides NodeBots are cool and what the heck is that, is find your passion. Take time to invest in it, and it will pay back, but maybe not literally directly monetarily. I've had to add that caveat. Mine does not pay monetarily by choice. And if it doesn't have anything to do with code, that's great, because I am super sick and tired of the trope of the coder who codes all the time, always, for everything, and never puts down their laptop. Like, I'm done with that trope. We need to show a diversity of interests, because a diversity of interests will lead to a diversity of people, and vice versa. The more we break down these tropes, the more we welcome diverse people into tech, and the more we welcome diverse people into tech, the more interests we find. Anyway, back to the table. So this is what I've got so far. I've got the beginnings of a dashboard. I've got a plan to scale to 6 seats. It was going to be 8, but then we realized that's kind of ridiculous, because it was going to be like a 7-foot across table. Now it's just 6 feet across, slightly less ridiculous. A physical prototype of 1 seat, which the TSA just loves. And a huge to-do list, and that's after 5 months of work. I think I proposed this talk in December, late December. So this is five months. By that I mean like 2 weeks of free time spread over 5 months. So I'm going to give you a demo. First, I'm going to show you how it works with the Elmo, and then I'm going to show you the code. So we can switch to the Elmo. Does this move? It does. Okay. I'm going to be careful with it, though. All right. So cup holder. This can heat drinks to about 120 degrees before the thermal paste on the heat sink starts melting. And it can cool drinks to 40 degrees for about 30 minutes before the thermal paste on the heat sink stops melting. So the way it works is underneath here, underneath this stuff is to insulate from heat loss due to air, because it's a little thin aluminum cup holder. Underneath here, we've got what's called a Peltier thermocouple. And what it does is it relies on a chemical reaction that's catalyzed by electricity to make one side of the plate really, really hot and one side of the plate really, really cold. But the trick is you have to wick the heat away from the hot side of the plate, or it just heats up the cold side of the plate, and then you end up with a lukewarm, sometimes hot plate. The other reason thermal paste starts to melt and you get really nasty smoke is I have to use what are called MOSFETs, because the fan and the thermocouple run on 12 volts, and the Arduino, which I use to control it, runs on 5 volts. So I have to have a special switch in there that allows me to turn on and off the 12 volts without the microcontroller directly handling them. So the way it works is I've got these 2 switches up here, which I've conveniently labeled for myself, because at 4 a.m. I was flipping the cool and hot switch and wondering why it wasn't working, because I meant to flip on and off. And when I turn this on, oh, it's already on. Neat. Is it good? It's not smoking. Good. So this fan is running and it's wicking away heat, and we've got the thermocouple. Yes, it's actually working. Awesome. Good day. On the bottom is hot right now, so it's wicking away the heat, and this little computer fan is blowing away more of the heat. I took this off of a motherboard. And then the cool side is pressed right up against the aluminum, which is a pretty decent heat conductor, so it's spreading the coolness up to the top. Now, if I flip the switch to hot, it reverses the polarity on the thermocouple, which means the hot side and the cold side switch places. So then now the hot side is against the aluminum. The hot side takes a little longer to kick in, and it's now heating the aluminum cup. I wish this was more visually dramatic, and it's not just a cup holder, but yeah. I need to get like an infrared heat camera, show y'all more about that. So continuing on with our tour, we've got 3 potentiometers, dials, and we've got LEDs underneath them. This is a strip of neopixels. You can change the red, the green, and the blue of the neopixels with the sliders. So you can change the color. I need to add a 4th potentiometer because my partner so lovingly enabled scope creep the day before I came to lower the number displayed so it can be like a health bar. If your character's high health, it'll show all the LEDs, and then you can turn this potentiometer down and it'll show fewer and fewer. So if you're playing D&D, you can look at your table and see what everybody's health looks like. And if you're poisoned, you could turn it green, or if you're on fire, you could turn it red. I've had a character on fire. It happens. Yeah. So then the last thing I have is these RGB LEDs over here, which are going to be upside down. I'm going to move this without dropping it this time. Without dropping it this time. There we go. 2 LEDs. I'm going to turn down the neopixels so you can see them. And they can cycle between the colors of the rainbow when the green one decides to work. And then there's a mode at the end which cycles rainbow on its own. So that one, it'll show a little more in a second. It's going from red to orange to yellow to green to blue. Yeah, that's what I've got so far. At the bottom here, this silver box is a modified ATX power supply. That's because the thermocouple draws about 2 amps when cooling and about 1.5 amps when heating. And yeah, that's not the amount you get from your USB ports off your computer. That does not work. So you need a modified power supply. I actually just grabbed my benchtop one and just kind of like stuck alligator clips to it. I need to build a proper power supply for it. All right, so I'm going to show you the code so we can flip off the Elmo. And if you want to see the prototype better and or like mess with it, I was planning on sitting in the hacker room with it tomorrow, at least for half the day. So if you want to come by and see it work and play around with it, feel free. So now we're back on my laptop. I'm going to show you the schematic that I've drawn out for what will be the entire table. So far, what's on the right has been actually implemented. These are the NeoPixel strips. They're controlled using Arduino Micro using what is called a Johnny 5 backpack. So a Johnny 5 backpack allows you to control things that Johnny 5 can't quite do on its own yet with it. So that's how the NeoPixels are controlled via Johnny 5. There's my on-off and heat temp or heat cold switch. I've got my 2 RGB LEDs, my MOSFET, that little square with the shiny line is the thermocouple. And then what's on the bottom left is what needs to be integrated. I've got a Raspberry Pi 3, a BlackBerry trackball, and an LCD screen. The LCD screen will give you the IP address of the table via the IP address of the Raspberry Pi. So if you want to like write add-ons or figure out where it's at, the LCD will tell you. And then the BlackBerry trackball will be to scroll through menus. There will be some table-wide settings available. So, what else have I got? I've got code for you. So this is all JavaScript. Every bit of the programming that I have done for this table is JavaScript because as our last speaker mentioned, or was it? No, 2 speakers ago mentioned JS or GTFO. So, what I'm doing is I'm setting up Johnny 5 and NodePixel, and I have LED burning in my eyes, so I'm trying to read my code. I set it up with a mega board. I will be using a boards array, and this will be running off of the Raspberry Pi on the final table. That way I don't have to sacrifice a MacBook Pro for my table. So when the board's ready, it sets up the cool MOSFET, which basically is the switch to turn on the cooler, and the heat pin. And really the only logic I had to put around those was I didn't want cool and hot running at the same time because I don't want to blow fuses again. Also, if you do that, the thermocouple itself could burn out. And while that isn't like a financial problem, it's still a pain to order new ones. I've then got status 2 and status 1, which are these LEDs. And then I set up the Node Pixel backpack. I actually kind of had to, one of the benefits of doing these side projects is one of my first pull requests that was not work related was to Node Pixel. Anyway, pot is potentiometer, short for. And we've got red, green, and blue, which are these twisty switches on the board. And then this is the part I really like about Johnny 5. People ask me, why JavaScript? Like, why not just write C? And the first thing that always jumps to my mind is event emitters. When it comes to robotics, almost all robotics code is just a series of event emitters and handlers. And how easily you can write those event emitters and handlers is what makes programming robotics either way easier or way harder for those new to robotics. And because JavaScript, and especially Johnny 5's API, handles events so well, you can pretty much read out my logic here. Whenever the potentiometer for red, green, or blue changes, we're setting the strip color with red, green, and blue. When the strip is ready, it sets up to white, though you never see the white because it immediately jumps to the color that's set. Set strip color, console.logs it out because I forgot to remove a debugging statement. And as for colors, this is an array, and that's for these guys, so they know what color to go to next. When status button 1 or 2 is pressed, it goes to either the next color in the array, or if it's rainbow, it runs rainbow, which is further down the code. I need to reorganize this a little bit. We've got our temperature power switch and our cooling heat switch. Change temp makes sure that heat and cold are not running at the same time. And when the temp power switch is turned off, it's neither heating nor cooling. I've got my rainbow function, which includes HSV to RGB function that just kind of makes the rainbow show up the way it does. And that's my JavaScript code, 185 lines of JS code. I've also got my dashboard. So far, what you can do is, it's super impressive. You can log in, and then it tells you your name, and that's about it. Must admit, I've got a lot to do. Five months of work have gone into that. Well, again, 2 weeks over 5 months of work has been spread out on this table. So far, it's just been me. My friends have been remarkably busy, or I've been out of town and unable to coordinate with them. But we're starting to work on plans for chairs. It looks like everybody's going to make their own chair at the table, and one of my friends is planning on putting a photon in his chair so it can interact with his actual seat at the table via the REST API. So that'll be fun. Another friend wants to put a Slack bot in there. It's going to get interesting. So the next thing people ask me, other than how did you get that through TSA, is when are you going to sell this? And the answer is I'm not. Anytime I do any NodeBots, I'm not intending to make money. I'm way too lazy. I'm not good at saying, have you heard of my startup bra? Like, no, I don't know. Not me. I would rather, and this happens a lot when I wear my light up clothes. People go, when are you going to sell them? I would much rather empower people to build their own stuff and not be the only person in the room with light up clothes than hide all the secrets to myself and be, the only person in light up clothes. That's just not what I want to do. I'd rather empower people to build their own stuff than sell my stuff. That's not to say I won't ever sell it. I might sell just like labor if I ever do make a table for someone. But all my stuff is open source, Creative Commons. It's all in GitHub. As of today, I just pushed the code up about an hour before I stashed this behind the stage. So that's what I'm building, and the why is because I want to learn more. I was always scared of dealing with voltages higher than 5 because I am constantly afraid of breaking things, and I figured what better way to confront that fear than to try to work with 12 volts. And how is the sharing and collecting of knowledge and working at it and having fun. Just if I'm not having fun with it, I put it down and I go do something else. Pretty easy. What's next? Getting the Raspberry Pi running multiple seats, which will have SaneSmart Mega clones, mostly because they're cheaper and do the exact same thing. API design, my friends want to design the API by committee. I want to design the API via benevolent dictator. We're still figuring that out. The dice rolls are still being made. There will be a dungeon master mode. So basically, I want the use case, as it were, was my DM walked up to me and he goes, "Okay, here's what I want to do. I want to be able to look at a player and without saying anything, lower their HP bar to like 2, and then tell them what happened." And I'm like, oh, I love that. Okay, so there's now a plan for a DM mode, so the dungeon master can, through the computer, mess with other players' seats and for dramatic effect. Because what is Dungeons and Dragons if not dramatic effect? And documenting all the things everywhere, always. And the reason I have that many words in that sentence is to remind myself to continue documenting everything. I need to put my AutoCAD drawings up in the repo, because despite all of the duct tape involved, there is an AutoCAD drawing behind this. I promise. The duct tape is because you need to measure your luggage before the night before you try to put the prototype in it. Anyway, if you're sitting in the audience right now and you think you can't do NodeBots or hardware, but you want to, go check out the johnny5.io site, because you will surprise yourself. You've got hack packs, go use them. And I mean, those aren't with Java, they might be with JavaScript, I'll have to double check. But either way, you know, hardware in general, you'd surprise yourself with what you can do. I have 0 formal electronics training until about a month from now. And you can too. That was a weird sentence, but you get my point. NodeBots Day is another great way to get involved. It is July 30th in most cities this year. Some cities are defecting due to NPM camp and either holding it July 23rd or in August. Just depends on your local city. You can Google NodeBots Day, and the GitHub repo where everybody organizes shows up first. So see if there's an event in your city and get involved, because again, the NodeBots community is very welcoming. Very great set of people. We're also a very diverse set of people, which I think is not coincidental, the fact that we're super diverse and super awesome. Come talk to me. The prototype and I will be hanging out, because my prototype is capable of hanging out in the hack space for most of the conference. By that I mean tomorrow. And feel free to stop by and ask questions. People always walk up and say, sorry, I don't want to ask you a lot of questions. If I didn't want questions, I wouldn't be up here. So don't feel sorry for coming and asking me questions. Even if they're not about the table, if they're just about getting into NodeBots. One of the best times I had at a conference, I spoke about something not NodeBots. Someone came up to me with an Arduino Uno and a question mark, and I taught them how to use Johnny 5 as a hallway track talk. So yeah, feel free to stop by and ask questions about just about anything. Thank you for listening. I am the NodeBotanist on Twitter and GitHub, because I made a funny joke once and it became my handle. The @NodeBotanist or Cass@auth0.com is how you can reach me by email. I'm a developer evangelist at auth0. You can ask me about OAuth and OpenID Connect, and I've read the specifications, so you don't have to. And yeah. I think that's my last slide. That is my last slide. Awesome. All right, that makes me done, and just in time. Thank you very much.